Hey y'all, welcome to episode 12, hopefully that's right on screen, of the Big Boy Basics. Today we're going over legs, the best leg exercises, how do you get some big, juicy tree trunk thighs. Disclaimer as usual, general recommendations, you know what's best for you in your own training. I trust that you can make your own decisions over time. These are not the only leg exercises, there are a million variations, and if you skip legs, you're a bum, so train your legs. Tired of chicken legs. So, lazy anatomy of the legs. There's a bunch of different little muscles. Here are the main ones we care about. Let's start with the glutes, your butt, the cake. You got your calves, the muscle no one ever trains in the yellow. You got your hammies. You got your hip abductors. Ab means outwards. And then inner thighs, hip adductors. Imagine adding to the middle line. That's how I remember it. Adductors adding to the middle line. Abductors outwards. And then you have your thighs, the quads. All these make up your legs for a bunch of different little movements. So major functions of the leg. Let's look at the quads first. We have knee extension, which is really just straightening your leg. You're just straightening out your knee. For the hammies, you have your knee flexion and hip extension. So two different things it works on. So it has the knee flexion, which is basically just curling your leg. And then hip extension is just really hip thrust. You're just thrusting your hip. And then the calves work on plantar flexion, which is really just a fancy way of saying pointing your foot downwards. Okay, we don't need to complicate any of these types of movements with our legs. So you got basic anatomy, basic functions. Let's jump into the exercises. Now for this full body leg exercise guide, I'm focusing on 3 different types of exercises. So first, let's focus on the quads, what's going to give you a great stimulus. So we have the main mover for the quads. And of course, number 1 is going to be the barbell squat. The barbell squat is the staple that can stay in your program basically forever. It's a great stimulus to the quads and glutes, and is very easy to progressive overload with without any fancy techniques for a very long time. Now the squat will take some time to learn as you find out how you like to place your feet. Do you like low bar or high bar? What depth can you reach comfortably without lower back pain if you get any? These are things that will take time in your learning on how you connect with the squat. So take your time learning, experiment, and see what you enjoy. Now, if you don't necessarily want to squat, I'd say the best substitute for a squat is the hack squat. Unfortunately, my gym I typically go to does not have a hack squat machine. They are bums for not having that. But this keeps you locked in the machine, you have back support, and you could push very hard without that much of an injury. So if you're worried about learning the barbell squat, if you're worried about injury, the hack squat's a great alternative. Now, if your gym doesn't have one like mine, the leg press is also a good variation and will hit similar body parts. Also, instead of having the weight on your shoulders like in a squat or a hack squat, the weight is pushing through your feet and you're more folded over in a seated position, which may be more comfortable to some people. You'll also find you'll be able to do a lot more weight on a leg press, so it is probably the easiest to consistently stack on reps and weight with for a very long time. Lastly, for the main quad builder, we also have a front squat. Now, to be honest, my front squat is complete garbage. I can't even do 2 plates cleanly, and my soon-to-be destroyed squat PR is sitting at 450 pounds right now, and it'll probably be much higher than that when I finish my phase of lifting. But the front squat is a great variation to use less weight with and work on some upper back stabilization. If you're more advanced and want to squat using variations that limit the amount of weight you have to use to get a good stimulus, this is your exercise. So these are the 4 main quad exercises, and glutes can get clumped in there as well, as many of these movements will train your quads and glutes. Next we have hamstrings. The king for hammies, I'll say, is the Romanian deadlift. It's really easy to learn, and the progressive overload potential and the way to stretch makes this a great exercise. I don't really see many people that shouldn't be doing a Romanian deadlift, as it's a great accessory to the deadlift as well if you care about deadlifting. If you prefer a lighter variation, you can work on your good mornings. Instead of doing the same motion with the weight on the floor, you now have it on your back, which will drastically drop the weight you are using. So again, if you want a lighter variation that doesn't make you use as much weight, but gives you a good stretch on the hamstrings, this is another great exercise. Now with the Romanian, the good morning, they do not train your knee flexion, which is a part of the function of the hamstrings. So it will be important to incorporate leg curls into your hamstring training at some point to train the other function of the hamstrings. Now, I am going to include a more athletic type movement because I have a lot of fun training these, and they are badass. We have the Nordic ham curl. I'm still working on mine to get clean form, But this is the body weight hamstring curl that will really beef up your hammies. If you can even do a handful of clean ones, you will have very strong hamstrings. If you don't want to train these, do some seated leg curls instead. According to our science bros, it has better muscle activation compared to the lying leg curl. But don't overcomplicate this. If you like the lying or the lying curl feels better with your body, just do that and work with that instead. So hamstrings done, easy peasy. Lastly, we have unilateral work for our legs, which will be quad focused again. So we start with our favorite torturous exercise, the dumbbell lunge. Now, there are a million different variations. I prefer to walk with my dumbbell lunge. Some people like to do the step, then the kick back. Some do a static in a V formation. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. Although I would say the walking dumbbell lunge takes the cake for my favorite variation. Next, we have the Bulgarian split squat, and there's also two main variations with this that I do. We have the dumbbell version, which leaves you unsupported and makes you balance with one foot, which might be good if that's what you are also looking for. If not, consider doing them on a Smith machine and absolutely frying your legs. These bad boys are brutal and take out stabilizing, which allows you to push really hard. Just make sure with any split squat you properly warm up. It's not a good feeling when you stretch those muscles too far when they aren't warmed up, and then you stretch out your groin for a week. If you hate lunges, which is understandable, consider the single leg extension. Progressive overload will be very slow with these, but they feel pretty awesome on the quads. And as I like to do, I like to squeeze at the top for a second for each rep to make sure I'm just not jerking the weight up. All right, so we have all the exercises. So how do we program these on our full body split? So you see I have three categories. We have the quads, the hamstrings, and the single leg variation. So one day you're gonna pick your quad exercise. Do the barbell squat, front squat, leg press, hack squat, whatever you got at your gym, whatever you prefer. And then the next day, you're gonna do your hamstring variation. The Romanian deadlift, a leg curl machine, the good mornings, the Nordic curls, whatever variation you prefer. And then on the other day, you're gonna program some unilateral leg work so you can get some individual work for your legs. So that could be the dumbbell lunges we discussed, the Bulgarian split squat, or the single leg extension to keep them going. For programming notes, if you do deadlift weekly, you might also find doing Romanian deadlifts might be a little too much for you. I don't think this will be the case for most people, but some might find it too much since they are similar movements. Consider doing the good morning instead if you find you're being fried after having both of these in the week, or do the hamstring curls instead because those will be much lighter variations. As we said before, the Romanian deadlifts and hamstring curls are also two different movement patterns, so consider switching between them from time to time so you get activation for both of those. I do love the squat, but you can get great results without squatting, as it saddens me to say, and you can do the leg press or hack squat machine. Also, you may notice you're only directly training hamstrings once a week, so if you really care about them, consider some more volume. But in the previous video, we do program deadlift with back, so you will get that extra hamstring work as the deadlift will train some of your hamstrings. So consider that maybe down the line when you're a little farther into your career and you can decide if you want more hamstring work or not. Now you may notice, where are the calves? Honestly, in my opinion, calf training is not very complicated. Most of us are just too lazy to do it consistently. So if you care about your calves, just superset calf raises in between other exercises. It's not complicated. You can get in 9, 12 weekly sets, just supersetting in between something else towards the end of your workout without that much extra work, okay? So don't overcomplicate calves. Just train them consistently and they will grow like any other muscle. Maybe your insertions do suck. Sorry, bro, just live with it. Also, why no direct glute training? If you're squatting, doing hamstring specific exercise, and deadlifting, you are going to have fine glute growth. They will grow indirectly with all these, especially with the hamstring exercise like a Romanian deadlift. You're going to hit your glutes hard. It's activated on the squat. It's going to be activated on deadlift, okay? So most of us will have pretty decent glutes if you're not skipping your leg training, okay? That's the main point. Do not skip the leg training. Now, if you really do want that booty cake-alicious juicy butt, right? Consider adding in hip thrusts somewhere in your workout. Maybe consider swapping out some other exercises on this full body workout and adding in hip thrusts instead, and like maybe a kickback of some sort if that's really one of your priorities. Okay, you can also superset the good girl bad girl machine, the hip adductor machine, if you really care about that as well. I don't prioritize that in training. They're very easy to train. You can superset it with anything because they're not very fatiguing. Okay, so don't overcomplicate any of that. So that's the leg guide. So up next, we're going to go over shoulders, the best shoulder exercises, and how I like to program those in a very simple way for a full body split. Check out the playlist here if you're lost, and watch all the previous videos so you can get caught up to speed. Peace.